Okay, good morning to you all once again. I'm Ahmad Ahmad, and I'm the founder and also CEO of Hammad Technologies and Consultancy Limited. Once again, I welcome you all to this live webinar, which we termed a guide to writing a research project in the social sciences, which the webinar is going to be taken by Dr. Kabir Ibrahim Yankuzo of Sociology, Federal University of Birnin, Kebbi, and is currently the Deputy Dean Student Affairs Division of the same university. And the webinar is supposed to start by 10 a.m., but due to network issue, it has to start at least 2 minutes past 11. So after saying all this, I'm just a moderator of the webinar. I think it's time for me to hand over the mic to the to Doctor for him to go ahead and start the webinar. Over to you, sir. Thank you so much for being here with us.
All right, thank you so much. I hope all that have joined earlier have not led due to the disappointment.
Yes, that they happen, and we also share the webinar now. We are streaming it online, so it's on our Facebook. So most of them are listening for the webinar over there. So even if they're not here with us, they are there watching the live webinar there.
Okay. All right. Good morning, our viewers. My name is Dr. Kabir Ibrahim Yankuzo, as mentioned or announced by. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, loud and clear. We can all hear you, sir. You can continue.
Okay. So I'm delivering a lecture on a guide to writing a research project in the social sciences. We said social sciences. Social science or sciences are disciplines that concern with the study of human social behavior. Generally, people may conceive that social sciences are not science, but many people wrongly conceive that only natural sciences that are considered to be science. So all disciplines, whether social science or sciences, are all science. We have two types of sciences. We have natural science and social sciences. What makes the two disciplines science is the methods that is used to gain knowledge. Science is all about systematic way of discovering how things in the universe work. So this systematization of knowledge is practiced not only in natural sciences, but also in social sciences. What only differentiates the two is not the approach used in gaining knowledge, but the subject, the object of study. Why is natural sciences like biology, chemistry, physics, and so on, they focus on the study of natural phenomena. Social sciences such as sociology, political science, criminology, anthropology, psychology, and so on, focus on the study of human social behavior. So generally, the two branches of science are all sciences. The only things this natural science focus on the natural phenomena, while social science focus on the social phenomena, social aspect. That is human beings, social interaction that takes place between human beings in the society. So generally, in these social sciences, research projects is very vital in social sciences. At the final year, students are mandated to take a research project as part of the requirement for graduation. Such research is carried out under a rigorous supervision. In spite of its significance and necessity, most students find it difficult to write their projects. A research project, as we know, whether at postgraduate level or undergraduate level, you cannot graduate, from your department without written a befitting research project, and of course, which is a core requirement, of graduation. So it is due to the fact that many people find it difficult to write their projects. So this lecture was organized on this ground to assist the prospective graduates understand what it takes to write a good research project. Social research. Let's define what research is all about. I hope, are you following me? I hope the network, are you with me? Wow.
Yes, sir. We are with you loud and
Okay.
clear, sir. We can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I thought I'm only talking to myself. All right. Social research. When we say research, social research is a clearly defined activity based on a clearly defined procedure. There are any research, of course, research is a rigorous activities, but such activities is guided by certain rules and regulations. There are do's and don'ts governing a research endeavor. So in simplest form, research means to search again, to prove further more deeply. Meaning, maybe when you have a question or you have something that you want to know or understand, so for you to know it deeply, to understand, to gain more insight about such phenomena, you need to search. Search. So the process of searching about something in order to gain new insight is what research is all about in a literal ground. Newman Newman defines social research as seeking answers to questions about the social world. Seeking answers to questions about the social world. And to do this, a researcher needs to think logically, follow rules, and repeat step over and over. What does it mean here? You can't conduct or engage in a research without having a questions or problems that need to be examined. So you need to have some questions. It is the questions that may guide you to find their answer. So based on that, his definition, social research is defined as seeking answers to questions about the social world. When we say mean anything that affects any aspect of social life that either directly or indirectly affect human beings. Don't be confused. We are in social sciences. So our subject matter of study is society. So anything that affects the life of society, that disrupts their social interaction, may be termed as, social world, the way the pattern of relationship, poverty, unemployment, kidnapping, and so on. All these are part of social world that social scientists, investigate and gain more insight about the phenomenon being studied. So generally, this means that based on the definition, you need to think logically. So that means there are certain rules and regulations in the course of investigating a particular phenomenon of interest. So the research is a systematic. It is systematic exercise. It requires collection of data. It requires analysis and interpretation of concrete fact about everyday reality. So whatever you are researching, you need to get, you need to collect data. If it is kidnapping, if it is maybe low utilization of, let's say, immunization services among people or population of a particular community, you need to go and collect data. Why is it that they don't use services? The services, are they adequate? Are they not? Are they inadequate? And so on. So, and after the data has been gathered, you need to analyze, then you interpret. So generally, research is a systematic endeavor that enables one to go to field, gather the needed data, analyze the data, interpret the data, and then prepare, conclusion to the phenomena. So generally, why do we conduct research? The key point about why we undertake research include the following. There are so many reasons why researchers conduct research. We don't just conduct research just like that, but every research is guided by a purpose. So some of the purpose or why we conduct research is one, to expand knowledge. If knowledge is the most important thing, the level of knowledge we have today, if we want to improve on it, we need to expand our knowledge. If you look at even the world metamorphosed through, and developed through research. In those days, our forefathers used camels, used drones and so on to pass communication from one person to another or from one locality to another. But as a result of research, people engaged in research and they came out, out with a method of communication that is more robust, more developed than the one used by our people, in those days. Today we use handset, we use internet and so on. Internet, handset, or whatever emerged as a result of research, which enable people to expand their knowledge. The same thing, the second one, problem solving is another reason why we conduct research. Whenever there is a problem bedeviling society, when society are being faced with a problem that needs to be addressed, research is conducted. For example, kidnapping. For example, we have high rate of insecurity in the country. In the Mississippi, it has become a epicenter and thing of kidnappers. So it's a problem. So we conduct research. Why do they? Who are the kidnappers? Why do they engage in the activities? And who assists them? Where do they get their arms and ammunition? What do they do with the money they collect as in form of ransom and so on? Do they? We gain more insights to address the problem. Number three, we also conduct research for informed decision making. Sometimes government or policy makers want to make a decision in order to ameliorate a certain problems being faced by society. So research is conducted. Number next is innovation and development. We conduct research just to get new way of doing things. There are the things that we do today. If we want to get a new way of doing things, more improved, more innovative way of doing a particular phenomenon that has been taken for granted, we conduct research in order to gain new innovation about such thing. Next is credibility building. We also conduct a research for credibility building. Here, what I mean, we conduct research to authenticate the existing body of knowledge. If maybe the knowledge available in the society, we think such knowledge is not reliable or is not the explanation is not satisfactory. What do? We conduct research to find out, to confirm the validity and reliability of that knowledge. Last, curiosity satisfaction. We also conduct research for curiosity. So many people are curious to know about something in their immediate environment. So for them to gain more insight about that phenomenon, they have to engage in a research. So generally, these are some of the issues that warrant a social research to be conducted. Are you with me?
Yes, sir. We are with you, sir.
Okay, you are with me, Ko?
Yes, sir.
So now let's move to the components of research projects. When we say components, we mean parts. We mean, or we can say elements, or we can say, so generally, a research project in social sciences for both undergraduate and postgraduate students usually contain basic components that are systematically arranged. In social sciences, like criminology, political science, sociology, economics, geography, anthropology, psychology, and so on and so forth. We research whether for undergraduate, the component, the essential component of a research projects are the same. What only differentiates, undergraduate project and postgraduate project is the level of rigor. That means the richness of a research is what differentiates the two. In postgraduate studies, a researcher is expected to be more critical, a researcher is expected to go deeply in the phenomenon he or she is conducting research on. But in undergraduate project, there are a number of things that are overlooked by the researchers or by the supervisors and so on. So generally, the components are the same. So the first thing in the research endeavor is research topic. You need to have a research topic before you begin to conduct any research. Every research proceeds with a clearly defined topic. All the components of the research speak to the topic. So as you have a topic of the research, I'm writing on banditry. Somebody kidnapping, somebody is a low utilization of immunization, no, low utilization of antenatal care, no, corruption, and so on, and many other things. So you need to have a topic. Then all the components of the research speak to the topic. The other component, like a background, a statement of the problem, objectives, a literature review, methodology, measuring empirical indicators, that is measuring data from the field, all must speak to that, to the topic. Then the topic may come, where do we get topic generally? Sometimes supervisor suggests to, his or her supervisee that write on so topic, write on banditry. For example, somebody from a banditry endemic area, his supervisor may advise him to say, okay, write on banditry because the banditry is a problem bedeviling your community. So sometimes a topic may come from the personal interest of the researcher. Maybe you have an interest in writing on so area. Somebody may say, my interest, I want to write on insecurity. Some may say no, on health. Some may say, so depending. People have different interests. So if sometimes topic may come from the interest of the researcher, then number next, observed problem. Topic may also come from an observed problem, the problem being observed by a researcher in a particular community or place may trigger research. Maybe, as I said, I want to, maybe somebody from Kebbi say, okay, I want to conduct research on Lakurawa. Who are the Lakurawa? Maybe I may form a topic, Lakurawa, causes and consequences of Lakurawa activities in Kebbi State or in the northwest, western Nigeria. This is a topic, for example. So a topic may come from the observed problem, being a problem being observed by the individual. Are you with me? Hello.
Yes, sir. We are with you, sir.
Good. Then So there are a number of things a researcher who is conducting research project that he has to consider while selecting a topic. So the following should be taken as guides in selecting the topic. You cannot just select a topic haphazardly without putting into cognizance some constraints or factors that may likely affect the conduct of the research. The first thing is the feasibility of the topic. The first thing you need to consider is the topic feasible? Is it possible for me? Because right from the topic, you should be able to understand the direction of the research. Who may likely be your study population? Where do you think you collect the data? Can you assess your study population and so on? So you need to understand. You need to consider if the topic is feasible. It is possible for you to conduct the research. Number two, the personal interest of the researcher. A personal interest of the researcher is another, factor that we need to put into cognizance while selecting a topic. Because if the researcher doesn't have interest in the topic, he may bound to face a lot of problems. He may not have courage to conduct the research effectively. Number three, you need to consider time and available resources. If selecting a topic, you should consider time. Will you be able to finish that project within the right time or at the right time? You need to consider, do you have resources available? Maybe the resources at your disposal can be enough for you to carry out the research. So you need to put this into cognizance. You will not start writing on a topic that you cannot finish within a year, particularly a research project for undergraduate, which is expected to be completed within a year. Unlike a postgraduate where it may take you maybe two or more years to complete. So you need to consider time and resources. Then defending an independent intervening, particularly in the quantitative research. Are you with me?
Yes, we are, sir. We are with you, sir.
Hammad, are you with me?
Yes, sir, we are with you. We can hear you.
So please, if I ask, because the class is so quiet, so if I talk, please just respond.
Okay, sir. I think I'll allow all of them they can unmute themselves and talk maybe
immediately, so that I should know that you are with me by the network. So I don't.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, we are with you.
Okay, so yeah, share Ibrahim, just talk.
We are with you, sir.
We are with you.
It's fine.
We are with you, sir.
Please, not everyone should. It's fine. Sir, you can continue. Hello, sir, can you hear me?
I think you can hear me, ba?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay. In the topic, dependent and independent variables should be clear. When we say your topic should capture two major variables or at least three major variables, particularly those of you that go for quantitative research design. Dependent variable is a research problem. Is a variable that responds as a result of change in the independent variable. Why independent variable is a variable that performs causal function. It causes another variable to change. Intervening variable is a variable that mediates between the dependent and independent variable. Let me give you, for example, let me just use a simple, let's say poverty causes crime in the society. Maybe I may say the impact of poverty on corruption in Nigeria. This, maybe let's assume this is a topic. Impact of poverty on corruption in Nigeria. We have two major variables here. We have poverty and we have corruption. So that means poverty will stand as independent variable. It is a variable that causes corruption. Why corruption is a dependent variable. So if you make change in the independent variable, let's say since people, it is a poverty that brings about corruption, let's alleviate poverty in Nigeria. Let's see every member, every Nigerian citizen can meet his or her basic needs of life. Let's alleviate poverty as much as possible to see what will happen to the corruption, whether people will continue looting public funds and so on. So generally, a topic, particularly in quantitative design, should capture the two variables should be clearly indicated. Then number next is geographical area to be covered must be limited. You cannot just say, you cannot say, I'm conducting the role of police in Nigeria, and you are interested in collecting primary data. It is not possible. Whenever you are conducting a research, get a limited area and just conduct your research there. Maybe at a state level, sometime local government level, sometime even community. Sometime metropolis, sometime like a police or prison, you may say the causes and the impact of rehabilitation of inmates, for example, in XY prisons. In one prison, one can conduct a research. So get a small area. You will find that the research more peaceable, and it will enable you to be objective and conduct a research based on the scientific rigor. Are you with me? So, are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the first thing is topic. So now we are done with the topic. We know how topic should be, where we do topic, where the conditions that one needs to put into cognizance while selecting a topic. So now we should move to the chapter 1. One of the important components, most important component of a research. In a research, we have chapter 1, which is introduction. So this is a chapter that introduces the researcher into the study or project, and it consists of so many components. Chapter 1, it is a chapter that introduces an individual researcher to the research. So it has component number 1, background to the study. That is the first thing that is interested or is required as far as this chapter is concerned. So, and background, this is it has to do with introduction, and it's one of the most important sections of an essay. It provides general and broad picture of the research situation. At the background to the study, it is the aspects that enables a researcher to give a broad or general picture of the research situation. What are you expected to do? What is the context? Where it also provides the context in locating the problem. This is the problem. This is the topic you are writing. So you are expected to give general background, general information as regarding that particular topic you are writing. So how can you achieve this? The first sentence starts with a general statement, introducing the issue to create controversy for arguments. So you cannot just be, no, the first sentence, you need to generate an argument or controversy in order to capture the attention of your reader. Here, for example, I'm writing on immunization, maybe utilization of immunization services in the state, for example. So I cannot just say what I should do I should begin with a sentence that may attract the attention of the general public or of the readers. I may say, okay, immunization is the most, I may begin with like immunization globally. Immunization has been recognized globally as the most effective method of preventing child mortality, particularly among under 5 children. But utilization of the services is very low in Zamfara State, for example, or in Kebbi State, or in Niger State, or in any other place you are writing. So this guy say globally. So somebody may be the sentence is captivating. It may enable you to capture the attention of the reader. A reader wants to know how can you, or how the statement is substantiated with facts that show that what you claim is true, is really true. So for the posting, you need to generate general argument. Then you need to back your statement with surprising statistics. Show if it is very low. Why is it low? Start from the general. You start from the world. This is the average use of utilization of immunization services, for example, at global level, at the world level. Then you come down to the Africa, or sub-Saharan Africa. This is, I hope you are not confused with sub-Saharan Africa or Africa. What I mean by sub-Saharan Africa are African countries that are located south of the Sahara Desert. All African countries, excluding Arab-dominated areas of North Africa, like Tunisia, Egypt, and so on, those countries are not part of the sub-Saharan Africa. So all this, so what is because sub-Saharan Africa is the largest contributor to the child mortality in the world. So you need to say, okay, this is in the sub-Saharan Africa, this is a number of children die maybe for 100 live births, and so on, or under 5 die for, and so on. Then after you finish the sub-Saharan Africa, come back to your country, Nigeria. Nigeria, this is a level of child mortality, and so on. Then as you finish this one, use quotations, use, as I say, summarizing statistics, contextualize the topic by briefly also introducing the topic. Maybe by the time you create the argument, you need to briefly define the key issue there. Then look at general background. What efforts have been done over the year to either to rebound utilization or improve the uptake of immunization services? You need to review all this and so on. So this is how you begin with writing your background. Then by substantiating your arguments at global level to the specific level, by quoting some authority, by including some surprising statistic and so on, it will of course you may likely have a very solid background. Then at the end, of the background, then with the focus of that is the thesis. To provide clear, at the end of the program, at the end of your background, you are expected to close your background with maybe at the end you say, okay, this research focus on or seeks to determine the factors responsible for low utilization of immunization services for children under 5 in Zamfara State. This is how your background to the study should be. I hope you are following.
Yes, sir.
So the next critical component is statement of the problem. This is where most students find it difficult. Statement of the problem is not the problem encounter. during the course of study. It's not the problem you encounter maybe during the data collection and so on, as some students misconceive. For you, a statement of the problem, it is an intellectual stimulus to thinking. It is a problem identified that needs to be solved. It is a questions that needs to be answered. It is what and how of the research problem. What is the problem? Is it kidnapping? Is it banditry? Is it corruption? Is it unemployment? Is it inflation? And so on and so forth. So what is the problem? This is what generally what research problem is all about. It is a more specific and definite statement about the nature and manifestation of the problem to be examined. It is the problem, what is being observed. It is here, as you, when you come to write statement of the problem, the first thing you need to do is you need to begin with, by introducing the problem. If it is kidnapping, kidnapping in Zamfara State or Zamfara State has become an epicenter of kidnapping or banditry and so on, which affect the socio-economic and political lives of the citizens. And now you need to explain the nature here, the nature of the problem, the nature of kidnapping, and you need to how the people suffer, from such how people are being kidnapped or how people are being affected by such problem. You need to describe the nature of that problem you are studying. After having identified the problem, so now you identify that your problem is banditry, and you are able to explain the nature of banditry in the state. If it is low utilization of healthcare services you are writing, you need to explain the nature of the low utilization of healthcare services, and probably you should give statistics, give how you compare the problem there with other places that have high uptake of utilization of healthcare services. Then after having done that, having identified the problem, so it needs to be clearly articulated. This is where the problem comes in. After you describe the nature of the problem, so the problem needs to be articulated. That is, you need to contextualize the problem. So how can we contextualize the problem? So we can contextualize the problems by answering the following question that I'm going to ask now. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
So after you describe the nature of the problem, then the next thing, what is it? Why is it problem requiring solution? Why is it requiring solution? Like banditry, you say banditry is a problem, and this is the nature through which the bandits attack the residents and so on. So why is it a problem requiring solution? You need to answer this question in the next paragraph. Are you following? Then the next question is, where is the problem located? Here, this is the reason why it is a problem requiring solution is because of blah, 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 blah. Then, and where is the problem located? Mention the areas affected or being affected by the problem. You need to explain those areas. All the areas affected, you need to explain them in the next paragraph. Then the next one, what are the, who are its victims? Who are the victims? Here, you begin to say the victims are women, children, maybe farmers, students, and so on. All the, victims of the problem should be well and logically explain here. Then the next question is, what are the factors responsible of the situation? Then you, in another paragraph, you need to say, maybe you need to identify factors. So some of the factors responsible for the situation could be in poverty. And majority of the people are poor, they cannot adequately provide for themselves, they cannot meet their basic needs, and so on. Poverty is one of the major factors. Then another factor may be illiteracy. So percentage of the populations are illiterate, cannot read and write, and so on and so forth. You can quote statistics, you can maybe use all the statistics available and say, and quote the percentage of people that are literate in the area. So here, this is how you get more factors, gather more factors that you think are responsible for kidnapping in the parastates. Having done that, the next question is, what are the consequences of its continued existence? What do you think may likely happen if the case of kidnapping is not tackled? So you need to explain what are the consequences of its continued existence in the state. It may affect this. It has a far-reaching effect. Farmers may not be able to go to farm. Health clinics and primary health care, particularly in the rural areas, are closed, and so on. So many consequences, socio-economic and cultural consequences of it allowance to continue in the process, it needs to be clearly indicated or explained. So when you follow these steps, you have, at the end of the day, you will have a very robust statement of the problem. I hope you understand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But
if you have question not right, are you following? Okay, so that we should not disrupt the flow of the lecture. We should allow the lecture to conclude, then we entertain questions. Okay, then the next component is research questions. Research questions are specific questions arising from the contextualized research problem. Here, your questions should not be disconnect between your problem, between the research question and the articulated or contextualized problem, in the previous chapter, in the previous subsection. So research question should come from the problem you contextualize. So must be linked logically to your research problem. Are you following? There are specific issues that the researcher intends to investigate. What are those issues? Maybe in as we say, mandatory. You now begin to your question is who are the bandits? Then what are the factors contributing to mandatory in the parastate? This is another question, for example. Then what is the implication of mandatory on health and economic activities of the people? This is another question. What strategies should be put in place to combat the menace of kidnapping in the parastate? All these are questions. So these questions must have come from the contextualized problems that you have already identified. Then the next one is objective of the study. Objectives are the measurable result the research intends to achieve in a given study. What do you expect, measurable outcomes that a researcher intends to achieve at the end of or upon the conclusion of the research? So, and this objective, your objectives, there is no difference between objectives and research question. Your objective, the research question you have in the earlier subsection should be used should be, converted to the objective of the study. No difference. The only difference between the research question and the research objective is the research of questions are in question form, while the research objective are not in question form. That is just it. Just like we say, who are the mandatory in the Zamfara state? Our first question. We now say to investigate the people that are engaged in banditry in the state. So what you need to do here, you are expected to be using to examine, to understand, to identify, to evaluate, and so on. This is how your objective or specific objectives, should be organized. Why the question, what are, how, to what extent? These are some of the, words that are more appropriate in forming a research process. Then your objectives, as I say, should serve as a link between the problems, between the research questions. They should serve as a link between the research questions, theoretical framework, the hypothesis, and the empirical observations. If any disconnect between these key issues, the research is bound to face a lot of problem. So your objectives must be from the questions. The questions must be directly from the research, from the statement of the problem. Then the hypothesis, it is an objective that is transformed to hypothesis sometimes. And this hypothesis must also be related to, theory you use. Generally, hypothesis is derived from the theory. As you review your theory that may likely guide your research. So you should be able to form your hypothesis on the basis of that theory. And it is possible, provided the theory can explain all the objectives embedded in the research. Are you following? So there should be a link. A statement of the problem must be directly related to research question. Research question directly related to the research objective. Research objectives must be directly related to the theoretical framework. Theoretical framework must be directly related to the hypothesis, and the hypothesis must be directly related to the empirical observation, the specific action and activities that you may likely measure in the empirical world must reflect all these components I just mentioned. Then this objective, the objective must be specific. You have to specify them. Then the objective should be measurable. You should be able to measure any objectives you have. You should be able to measure it in the field. Then should be achievable within the time frame. Your objective you have to formulate your objective in such a way that you can achieve them within the available time at your disposal to complete the study. You must not, formulate objectives that you cannot finish within the specified time frame. Then in writing the objectives, there are two types of objectives in a research project. The first sentence, when you have your subheading as objective of the study, the first thing you should state is the general objective. You just begin with the general aim of this study is to examine the factors responsible for banditry. You need to state your topic. Then you should have the other type of objective is specific objectives. Now you say specifically the study intends to examine or to evaluate or to understand or to investigate or to ascertain. Are you following? You need to form some specific objectives that will guide the study. I hope you are following.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We're following.
Then the next component is significance of the study. Significance of the study here. Everybody knows that we cannot just conduct a research that has no direct bearing on the increasing, the welfare of society or addressing the problems being faced by members of the society. So significance of the study is the expected value of the findings of the study. What is the value? What do you expect? Which value do you expect at the end of the study? So, and usually most research studies are conducted with the ultimate intention of making significant contribution to the existing body of knowledge. If a research doesn't or cannot has no cannot contribute to the existing body of knowledge, that research is useless. And sometimes research is conducted to benefit policymakers to come to the area for intervention. It also assists government to address some problems being faced by society. So generally, research is of many significance. Sometimes research can contribute to the existing body of knowledge. Sometimes research can help in addressing some problem. Research can assist policymakers by preparing some recommendations that, if well implemented, will enable a society to address the problems bedeviling it. Next is scope of the study. We have another session which is called scope. This has to do with the boundary of a study. The boundary, the limits where your research is situated, the limit area or boundary where the research is going to be carried out. So generally, under this scope, you need to state the fiscal boundary. Fiscal boundary is a place where the research is conducted, is being carried out. If it is a state, may say a Kaduna state, or Katsina state, or Zamfara state, or Kebbi state, and so on. This research, you will state the topic. This research is designed to explain the factors responsible for banditry in Katsina state of Nigeria. You have already stated this. Then you also need to explain intellectual scope. What are the areas you intend to cover? The intellectual scope has to do with the specific things that research is designed to explain or to investigate. Like, are you interested in investigating who are the bandits, the causes, the consequences, the implications, the strategies that could be implemented to address the problem? These specific issues that you intend to investigate, which has already been explained in your objectives, are this intellectual scope, which of course need to focus. And probably show the limitation that the research may not cover so, and so due to so constraints. Then another one is temporal boundary. Temporal boundary is a time frame, the time that you want to spend in conducting a research. So generally, scope of the study should consist of 3 key issues: the fiscal boundary, intellectual boundary, and temporal boundaries. So these are the things that you are expected to explain when you come to explaining scope of the study. Then the next one is the definition of key concepts. Definition of the key concept. In every research, there are concepts that are key, that are important to the study. So you need to briefly, very short definition, but in a concise manner. You need to explain such key concept in, like a banditry. What does banditry mean in the context of your study? Briefly explain what banditry is all about. And so many other key concepts that you find that are important or key in the studies. So generally, these are the components of chapter 1 in a research project. And these components are the same, as I say, both for undergraduate and postgraduate. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So next is the chapter 2. Chapter 2 is literature review and theoretical framework. Here, you are expected to have a literature, to review literatures, studies conducted in different places that are relevant to the topic you are writing. You must not write review objectives that are not directly related to the your objective or your study. Must be relevant, must be a literature that directly explain your research, your research topic or research problem. So literature review, many people misconceive literature as just a system of summarizing findings of different studies and just paste in your review. Sometimes people are good in summarizing paragraphs. They just get a paragraph and just summarize the whole thing and copy and paste in under his or her literature review. It is not literature review. Literature review is more than that. Literature review is a systematic way of interrogating the existing body of knowledge in order to understand the gaps available within the literature so that to enable you to have clear direction. Generally, we should know that social research occurs within a broader context of scientific knowledge. And of course, this context of scientific knowledge provides substance to the research, provides direction and meaning to the story. We sometimes reviewing existing body of knowledge will enable you to know to know the knowledge accumulated on that aspect. It enables a researcher to know, to understand what is known about the problem being investigated. So that is why some universities or some institutions, when a student comes for supervision, they may ask him to go and start literature review. They don't even ask him to start background, maybe background to the study. They will say, go and review 100 literature and come back. So the idea here is that while reviewing literature, you'll be able to understand the gaps in knowledge that may enable you to form your own objectives and so on, for you to be, and of course you find it very simple to, for your study to contribute to the existing body of knowledge. So generally, literature review, according to Gill, literature review is an exercise in which a researcher searches, identifies, and critically examines the body of knowledge on the subject of inquiry with a view to examine what is known and the gaps that are still in existence. Generally, it is a literature review has to do with critical examination of when you take an article. So concepts were defined in the study. Is the definition satisfactory? What is the methodology? What is the research design? Who are the study populations? Is the research design appropriate? Which so here, what are the findings? Are the findings satisfactory? These are the specific issues that you'll be putting into cognizance. Anywhere you identify a gap, you say that the methodology is very weak. You criticize, you make explanation based on the article at your disposal, based on the article you are reading. This is literature review. It's not just Yankuzo conduct The research result, the data were satisfactory, and the findings were not reached as expected. And of course, the research ought to have found so things that you think are worth investigating in the state, which ignored by Yankuzo, and so on. This is what makes a very good, literature review. So, in the process of review literature, a researcher must be one, systematic. You need to be systematic and review literature. What makes you systematic? To be highly patterned. Your review should be patterned and organized. Maybe systematization here, you may start with objective one, all objective one, objective two, because a literature review has to be sectionalized based on objective. So objective one, objective two, objective three. Then the materials you have at your disposal, you should begin probably with all one, then follow maybe the material published in 2020, then in 2021, then in 2022. This is how you should organize your review in a coherent manner. Then number two, a reviewer needs to be critical. You have to criticize. You have to interrogate the existing literature, whether what is done is right or not right. Then number three, a reviewer or researcher needs to be discussing. You cannot just be summarizing, as I say, and pasting. You should be able to discuss. The researcher conducted a research in blah, 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 and the methodology he used mixed methods or triangulation, and the method is, the design is the strength of the design is satisfactory, and the data he collected, both primary and secondary data, and all the data were satisfactory, and so on and so forth. But the finding where this and that were not reached because of the major. The issue of measurement is faulty. He didn't measure the required data, and so on and so forth. This is how you, through this, it will enable you to, therefore, things that the research didn't capture this and that, and this is a gap in knowledge which is needs to be known. This is a gap you have identified in the study conducted by Yankuzo, for example. So you need to be discussing. You should be discussing, not just copy and paste. Then you should be integrative. The researcher needs to be integrative. Integrative here, a researcher should have the capability of integrating the various studies that have similar findings. Maybe Yankuzo conducted research in Kebbi, and Aminu conducted in Kaduna, and another one conducted in Zaria, in Kebbi, another one conducted in Lagos, and so on. But they reported similar findings. So here, you should be able to integrate what these researchers, discover in one paragraph. Maybe you may have a paragraph, say, following a review, you now begin to mention Yankuzo 2025, I mean 2025, 23, 20. Then they conducted research on those on factors responsible for banditry in Zamfara State, and they found out that of poverty, unemployment, blah blah blah. You mentioned in all what we should be able to integrate what they saw, what they say, what they found as the major factor responsible for kidnapping in Zamfara State. And of course, if you do that, you are integrating. So you don't have to follow the reviewing, findings of researchers one after the other, provided the findings is more or less the same. And researcher needs to be exhaustive. You should be able to exhaust to the base of your ability, existing body of knowledge available at your disposal. You need to review as much as possible. So these are the qualities that are required, for a researcher to possess while reviewing literature. The first one, I say, you have to be systematic. The second one, you have to be critical. The third one, you have to be discussive. The fourth one, you have to be integrative. And the last one, you have to be exhaustive. Literature review is composed of two parts. So in the review literature, there are two major parts that you are expected to put into cognizance. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
The first one is conceptual and operational review. Conceptual and operational review. This is the first review a researcher is expected to do in this chapter. Conceptual and operational review, it means here giving a conceptual definition, of the constructs or the concepts you are working on. And you are expected to give definition, like mandatory. You say impact of mandatory on socio-economic whatever. What is mandatory? You need to give a theoretical definition of mandatory here. You need to explain different types of mandatory if are available. Anything you want to explain under mandatory, you need to explain it. Then socio-economy. What is socio-economic factors? You need to explain socio-economic factors according to Ani. So person say a scholar defines socio-economic factor or socio-economic status of blah 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 blah. Then all the key concepts in your study needs to be defined here. Then this is what we call conceptual definition. In a research, there is what we call definition. It's one of the elements of research. Definition, there is conceptual definition and operational definition. Conceptual definition has to do with giving a concept theoretical definition. A definition that is general, that is not linked to individual, not linked to time, not linked to place. It is a definition that is acceptable today, acceptable tomorrow, and also acceptable yesterday. So general definition is what we call conceptual definition. If it is mandatory, what scholars, what articles, how did scholars define, mandatory? You are expected to explain this. So having done that, then the second aspect, after you finish conceptual definition, then the last paragraph should be your operational review, operational definition. Operational definition is how the concepts, how the constructs is going to be measured in the empirical world. If the act of movement from the conceptual definition to the specific things a researcher intends to measure in the real world, all the questions in questionnaire constitute your operational definitions. If it is quantitative research, which maybe you are interested in using questionnaire. So those questions that you have in your questionnaire that reflects, that connects the abstract concept or concepts that you are interested in measuring is what you call. So you need to say in the context of this study, in the last paragraph, a mandatory could be measured in blah, blah, blah. You now start describing those activity or those actions that constitute what we call banditry. Maybe the killing of people, kidnapping, the demand for ransom, blah, blah, blah. Those issues in the empirical world are the issues you are expected to measure to enable you answer the research question, to enable you achieve your research objectives. That is why we say research is a systematic. If you cannot, if any disconnect between objectives, hypotheses, statement of the problems, empirical findings or indicate observation, the research is useless. There is no way for such research to treat. So generally, conceptual and operational definitions need to have a part under literature review. Conceptual, you need to define the major concept, which is giving them theoretical definition, then explain in the last paragraph how the concept is going to be measured in the field. This is the first one. Then the second aspect is empirical review. After conceptual and operational review, the next part is empirical review. Empirical review, here, a researcher is expected to review studies, empirical study conducted by some researchers in different places that are relevant that directly explain his or her research focus. Are you following? So in empirical review is done based on objectives. Are you following? Is done based on
Yes.
objectives. If you have 5 objectives, go to your chapter 1, in your objective, if you have 5 objectives there, so you are expected to have subsection of 5 subsection of empirical review. Under objective 1, you need to have form a subsection under that objective 1 and get empirical study and review. Is that clear? Under objective 2, you have the second subsection. You need to have subsection for all the objectives. So here, when you have this, and the next thing you need to do here is not secondary material, it's not textbook that should be consulted or whatever. Study, empirically based study conducted where data were collected, they were field visited, and methodology. The study was well designed, and so that you should be using, reading, reviewing them under each objectives, interrogating the literature. So, and the best thing, what may likely assist you in doing empirical review, you need to employ the techniques of literature mapping. That is what you call literature mapping. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the literature mapping due to a technical problem we face. So you just draw a table. You don't have to be, when you get an article, a published article, or journal, or whatever. So you need to have a table or a paper, design a table, serial number. Then you have a column, author's name. Now the second column, the year the study was published. Then the next column, study location. Then next column, theory use. Next column, methodology. Next column, findings of the study. Then the last column should be remark. So when you have your paper with you, you design this table. The first one, serial number, that is serial number 1 article. The author's name, this is the author's name, Yankuzo, where the work was published 2025. Study location, for example, Zampara. Theory, he used social theory, the name of the theory he used. Methodology, he used the methodology you explained. Findings, this is what he found. Then you should make a remark. So when you take become, being, good in plagiarism, to fall the victim of plagiarism if you do that, because most people don't even know how to paraphrase things. They only copy and paste things directly. But if you do literature mapping, it will enable you to go away from from plagiarism. So when you take an article, just as you take an article, give it number, serial number 1. This is author's name. You know the year, write the year. Study location, you know the place of the study. Theory,
Hello, sir. It seems like
Are you with me? Can you hear me now?
yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, we just it was network that disconnected us. All right.
Yes,
So
actually,
I
we are
said,
also disconnected.
okay, are you with me now?
Yeah, we are back. We're hearing you.
So I said, look at the theory. Is the theory used in the study appropriate? If it was appropriate, you need to indicate in that column. If it is not appropriate, you say the theory is not suitable for this study, and it was used by the study, wrong theory was used, in the study. Methodology, the research design, how the study was designed. Is the design appropriate? If it is appropriate, you should comment. If it is not appropriate, you should also say the theory is not, the research design or the population or the sampling techniques or the method of data collection or the method of data analysis is wrong. And as you identify the gap here, you say the methodology. So the methodology is a gap because the methodology used in the study was wrong. Therefore, this is a gap you identify in the literature. Then findings, you need to explain the findings. If the finding is rich or is not rich, and so on. Then under remark, you now form a note that you explain all your observation there. The theory is blah, 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 the methodology, blah, 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 the findings are rich or are not rich, and the reason are this and that and that. So by the time when you finish, this is what we call literature mapping. So by the time you are done with this article, just drop it, pick another article, give it number 2, do the same. So by the time you finish mapping the literature, you now come for just summarizing what you have already mapped already. And of course, that will enable you. That enables you to have a very, very good research, a literature review, and abstain you from being the victim of, of plagiarism. So this is generally, in a nutshell, this is what we call literature review or literature mapping. Is that clear? So, secondly, you need to trace the gaps in the literature. You need to trace the gap in the literature. While reviewing literature, we have about 4 major gaps that are identified while reviewing literature. The first one is knowledge gap. The second one is theoretical gap. The third one is spatial gap, and the last one is methodological gaps. There may be some other gaps, but these are the fundamental ones. Knowledge gap is when we don't have knowledge about the occurrence of a particular thing in our society, is a knowledge gap. When there are something that needs to be explained, but we don't have the existing theory to explain it. Maybe when you discover that a study conducted in social place, there are a lot of things that are known, and the theory, the study failed to, this is a knowledge gap, which, of course, if identified, it will guide your study. Theoretical gap, when the theory apply or use in the theory is fake, or if the theory doesn't have the strength to explain all the objectives. So we may say there is a theoretical gap because the theory used is not suitable. Spatial gap, when there is no study conducted in a particular place. Maybe we identify a impact of banditry was conducted in Zamfara, but it wasn't conducted in Katsina. No scholar conducted the impact of banditry, for example, in Katsina. I gather a lot of materials on banditry, but I couldn't trace any study conducted in Katsina. So that constitutes your spatial gap. Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The methodological gaps. Methodology has to do with the research design. It has to do with the process of data collection, sampling, data analysis, and interpretation. So if the methodology is weak or doesn't pitch or did not pitch to the study, you now this gap may constitute your methodological gap. So these are generally, we have four major gaps in the literature: the gap, the knowledge gap, theoretical gap, spatial gap, and methodological gap. In reviewed literature, the most reliable sources of literature materials are peer-reviewed books that have been published by reputable journals, that have been reviewed by experts, journals, peer-reviewed journals that have also been published by reputable journals. Others include conference proceedings, seminars, presentation, and so on. These are the most important resources that is expected a researcher to review while reviewing literature. Then literature review serves significant function to the research as follows. One, it demonstrates a familiarity with a body of knowledge and establish credibility. When you, by the time you are reviewing literature, it will enable you to familiar with the topic you are conducting research on. It enables you to understand the existing body of knowledge that is available in that field. It assists you in designing the most appropriate methodology. By the time you are reviewing literature, you discover that social methodology used by a particular scholar is weak or is not appropriate, and so on. So, that may enable you to, to go away from being part of the, designing a methodology that is weak. You have already seen that his methodology is weak. That will enable you to have a very strong methodology that can help you to achieve your desired or research objective. It brings out the gap in the specific area of knowledge. By the time you are reviewing, a gap may likely be available. You trace the gap in knowledge, but the most important gap is knowledge gap. Theoretical gap, methodological gap are less important, compared to knowledge gap. So it enables learning and stimulating new ideas. You learn a lot of things. You learn how a particular concept or the phenomenon you are investigating is being measured by others, and that will enable you to prepare measurements very well. In review literature, there are two major challenges often confront researchers in reviewing literature. While people are reviewing literature, sometimes researchers are confronted by some challenges, two major challenges. The first one is too many data, and the second challenge is paucity of data or scarcity of data. Too many data is a problem. Sometimes in the topic you are writing, because many people have written, there are a lot of materials on that topic. So sometimes a researcher tend to be confused on, selecting which one should I use and which one should I not use. Here, what you need to do, when you are confronted with the problem of too many data, what you need to do, just focus on there are three major ways that you can tackle this problem. The first one, you need just to, let me focus only on the leading authorities. What I mean by leading authority is those scholars that are cited more often than others, that are known, that are prominent in the area. So you should only focus any article that is not written by such people is disregarded. You don't even review it. That is one aspect. Second aspect, you focus on the recent studies. It's any study that is conducted or that was published before 2020 is not considered. For you to, because the materials are so many, you now just, hello, are you with me? It's like...
Yes, we are with you.
Okay, so you now say, any article that was published, prior to 2020 is not included. So you now focus yourself focus on the articles published from 2021 to 2025. So that will enable you to solve the problem of too many data. And the last one is maybe we should focus on only materials the most relevant that are most relevant to your study. Only the materials that are very much relevant to your study that you review. So generally, too many data problem or challenges that are often faced by researchers is overcome through one of these three strategies. Why the paucity of data or scarcity of data? Sometimes a researcher, a student reports to his supervisor that, sir, I have been searching. I have been searching. I went to so libraries. I couldn't get any material. And I search on the Google. I Google. I only found 2 or 3 articles that are related to my study. So I want to change the topic. No, you don't have to change the topic. What you need to do as a researcher who is confronted with a paucity of data, one, you need to you need to address this problem by reviewing literature that are only relevant, that directly explain your topic. Number 2, you may say, okay, since the data is scanty, get any article that overlap your objectives. Maybe the article is not for your topic, but it explains some of your objectives. Even though the objectives are not all objectives addressed by the study, maybe one of your objectives was addressed by the other study. So you can be reviewing such kind of materials as gradually you find you get there. You find out that by the time you finish your review, almost all your problems of paucity of data is solved. This is all about literature review. I hope you are following. The next is theoretical framework. Here, any research is guided by theory. Theory is a logically connected set of general propositions that establishes connection between 2 or more variables. Theory is a logically connected concepts, propositions, or variables designed to give explanation to a particular things. So in every research, particularly research in social sciences, we often adopt a theory to guide our research. So and how do we select an appropriate theoretical framework? There are so many ways through which we should use, or follow to review a reputable theory. Number 1 is a theoretical framework involves identifying a particular perspective that has potential value to offer explanation of the expected outcome of the study. So first of all, you need to find a theory that has the power to explain your research objective. If the theory is capable of explaining all your research objectives, so you can use one theory will be okay. But if the theory can only address one of your objectives, why the theory could not explain the other objectives, so you need to also find another theory that can explain the other 2 objectives that the first theory refused or cannot explain. So in reviewing a theory, it should begin with the identification of the author. Why reviewing? When you take a theory, you cannot just start writing on the theory. Who is the proponent of the theory? Who is it? Who developed the theory? You need to say, okay, a health belief model or a Marxist political economic of health or whatever theory was developed by who. You need to explain who is the person, who is the proponent of the theory. Then after that, any theory that scholars discover or develop, such theories are normally developed in the context of some issues. There are certain things that happen that trigger development of such theory. So which context? The context within which such ideas evolve, you need to explain. Maybe the theory was developed by so-so person as a result of blah, 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 blah. You need to explain the reason why he developed the theory. Then changes in the theory that have taken place over time. Sometimes the first person that developed a theory, others researchers after applying the theory and conducted some researches, they may tend to improve on the theory. So you need to explain what are the changes or modifications, experienced by the theory over the years, if there is any. Then you need to explain the basic assumption of the theory. What are the assumptions? What are the central assumptions of the theory? You need to explain. Every theory must have assumptions. Theory that doesn't have assumption is not a correct theory. So you need to explain the central assumptions of this theory are blah, 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 blah. Then what is the relevance of the theory in explaining the objective of this? You need to apply the theory, link the theory to your research objectives. How relevant is the theory? Then identify many theories. You can identify many theories that are relevant to the study. After you identify, okay, this theory, social theory, theory A, B, X, all are applicable in this theory. Then you need to highlight the strength and the weaknesses of each one in relation to the research objective. Maybe by the time you identify all the theories, okay, social theory is the strength of social theory is weak in explaining this research, blah, 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 blah. Then you need to pinpoint in what way or ways that the theory you select is superior to the other in terms of of its explanatory and predictive power. Maybe the theory you use is, okay, all this theory, the social theory is the most relevant theory that can explain my research. Therefore, I'm adopting this theory to serve as a guide because this theory, it has more explanatory and predictive power than the other theories because of these you explained. If you do that, that is just it. Then state the limitation of the choosing theory. Even the theory you choose, it must have a certain limitation or criticism, if any. And then, modify how the problem could be addressed. You need to explain in what ways the shortcoming of that theory that you have already adopted could be addressed. This is very, very important. Then the last one under this chapter is hypothesis. Hypothesis is supposed to be under chapter 2, immediately after the theoretical framework, because ideally hypothesis should be derived from the theory. So based on the theory, we should formulate our hypothesis. Hypothesis is a tentative statement of relationship between two or more variables. Hypothesis is just an expectation. It's just a guess on what the outcome of a research is going to be. It's just your own assumption. What do you think may likely happen? This is just hypothesis. It's a tentative statement to a researchable issue. You just make a statement, and that statement may be true or not, depending on the outcome of the study. After the data have been gathered and the hypothesis have been tested, you will now see whether or not the hypothesis is accepted or the hypothesis is rejected. So generally, you can only form a hypothesis if you have fair knowledge of the area of study. Based on maybe the literature and theory you review, you may likely have some idea about the topic. Then, based on the idea you gather in the literature, you formulate your hypothesis, which is linked to your objective. You now formulate a hypothesis. So, any hypothesis stated must contain both real and null hypothesis. If you say there is a relationship between poverty and crime, for example, so it should be H1, that is the real or alternate hypothesis. Then you need to also say, you need to form another hypothesis under it, HO, by saying there is no relationship between, poverty and crime. So the first one indicating relationship. The second one, which is called the null hypothesis, indicating no relationship. So any hypothesis you formulate, it must contain both H1 and HO. That is the real or alternative hypothesis and the null hypothesis. So hypotheses guide the research in analysis and interpretation of data. Hypothesis is more related with quantitative research design, which can be subjected to rigorous tests. Most of the studies where that test hypotheses are quantitative. Qualitative research has nothing to do with hypothesis testing. We only form hypotheses in quantitative design, which involve probability sampling, which involve use of rigorous statistical analysis, for the data. Is that clear? So this is all about chapter 2. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Eh?
Yes, we are with you, sir.
Sir, we
All
are
right.
with you.
The last one is chapter 3, which is methodology. And you know what methodology is all about. Methodology has to do with the method of. Please, I'll just give me just less than 5 minutes. I want to flog my system, my phone on charging, so that we continue and just finish within the next 30 minutes. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir, that's it.
Just
Okay, sir.
okay.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Okay, so I think we have to give the speaker 5 minutes for him to plug his system, like he said. So we can all take a little 2 minutes break to stretch our legs, and I think then we come back to keep listening to this wonderful uh lecture. Thank you all for being here with us, and yeah, doctor is coming back in few minutes time. Okay, yeah, I saw some chats. Let me respond to some. Ibrahim was saying that if there is a slide of the material, please share on the screen. Yeah, I'll talk with the doctor. So maybe after the lecture, if the slide is available, I believe maybe you'll talk with the doctor. We all have your emails and we'll share the slide presentation with you. I don't know if it is ready, but if it is, I'll discuss with doctor and then we'll share it via your emails after the presentation. Okay, I think that's all that I saw in the chat. And please before Doctor finish everything, I forgot to tell you this. If you have any question maybe that you need to ask, please go ahead and drop your questions in the chat. That's the best way for us to handle all the questions at once, and it will save more time because if we said everyone is going to talk, this thing is clearly is not going to finish in uh you know uh short time. So, but if you have any question, please drop your the question in the chat, and then I'll read it out loud to the uh doctor when it's time for question and answer, and then the doctor will respond to the question. Thank you so much for being here with us once again.
Wait. To haka na yi haka sai kuma haka kawai. Wallahi. Bayan Hello.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. So let's give Doctor some few minutes. And if you have a question, please drop all the question or what you need. I saw someone said my question is on literature mapping. Please, if you have a question, drop it because this question is vague. Is vague. I don't think because you can't say all what doctor said about literature is going back to that. So drop your question and please adumbrate as or explain more about it so that when we read it, everyone.
eh?
Yes, we are with you. We are with you, sir.
Yeah, we are with you, sir. You can go ahead.
All right. So now we are done with literature review. And I hope you have gotten it right. And I believe any one of you that attended this lecture should be able to, while review literature, should be able to interrogate literature and write a befitting, literature review or chapter 2. So the next one is chapter 3. Chapter 3 is methodology. Methodology, how can we write methodology? The first thing we should do, why we write chapter 3, methodology, then we need to introduce. The chapter begins with an introduction, which gives a summary of the issues to be covered. So you need to summarize this chapter, deals with data, description of the study area, a population of the study, sampling method of data collection. And so you need to just briefly, in few sentences, introduce the content or summarize the issues to be covered, as far as the chapter is concerned. Then number next is description of the location. This section provides, vivid description of the geopolitical and socio-economic activities of the place of study. So under description of the study, you need to briefly explain the geographical location of the area, under study. If your study is being conducted in Kebbi or in Birnin Kebbi, so you need to explain the location, geographical location at both latitude and longitude. Then you need to explain the neighboring communities, the communities, or if it is communities, if it is a state, you need to explain the neighboring states, the state neighboring your states of study. Then you need to explain the socio-economic activities of the people. Who are the people? Which people are found there? The ethnic affiliation, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, whatever. You need to explain all this. The place is inhabited by blah, 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 blah people. Then you also need to explain their economic activities. What are the available economic activities in the area? You also need to explain while describing location of the study. So not only that is not only enough. Researchers must provide reasonable justification for the selection of the location. Why are you not conducting your research? Why did you select Gusau, not Birnin Kebbi, not Zaria, not Ogumasho, not Lagos, and so on? You need to give clear justification of selecting that area. And how do we write this? What are those factors? What are those unique characteristics that enables you or that compel you to conduct your research in that community? These are the justifications. Maybe in the case of banditry, for example, as we gave an example earlier, that I select this select so all the state was selected because Zamfara State has become an epicenter of banditry activities in Nigeria. And that is why the state is selected. Justification. You have already justified the reason you selected the para state. Then types and sources of data is another subsection under this chapter. Are you with me?
Yes, we are with you, sir.
Data. What is data? Data refers to the information that is collected, observed, or measured in order to gain insight and knowledge about a particular subject or phenomenon. Data in the social sciences are the information that we gather or we collect from the field that enable us to gain insight about the phenomenon being investigated. So we need to collect data, and our sources of data must be clear. So generally, data are generated mainly from the unit of resources. Where do we get data? We get data, particularly in social sciences, from the individuals that are respondents, or from the informants, or from the discussant in the case of focus group discussion. Is that clear? So this is where we normally get data for our study. So they are not material collected from textbook, journals, conference proceeding, seminar workshop, as many people misconceive. Many people misconceive. I source data from secondary sources. I gather from textbook, gather from journal, which is not the data, which is not empirical data that a study that should be used for a study. So as I said, you can't say you use secondary data and start quoting textbooks or journal. Those ones are not primary data, are not secondary data. Those data, the data you gather that have already been published, are the data we call tertiary data. I hope you are following.
Yes,
so
we are following.
Let's understand types of data. We have three major types of data. You need to explain primary. We have primary data, secondary data, and tertiary data. Primary data are the first-hand information that a researcher gathers from the field. We often use questionnaire to ask, to gather information from our respondent. Those information we gather through questionnaire is an example of primary data. Sometimes, in the case of qualitative design, we conduct FGD, focus group discussion, or IDI, in-depth interview. We interview people and we gather data. Those data is an example of primary data. Why secondary data? Secondary data are data that are yet to be published but gathered by another person or organization for their consumptions. This is what we call secondary data. Sometimes we want to know how many people attained antenatal care per month in Kaduna State. What do we do? Even though the data is yet to be published, we visit Ministry of Health. We ask that we need a data, or we need data of number of women that attended antenatal care in May in Kaduna State. They will give you. When you give you that data is not primary data, but it's a secondary data because the data is you are not the one that directly collected the data. It was collected and gathered by someone for their own use. But you, as a researcher, you need such data. So this data is what we call secondary data, not as people misconceive the data gathered in published materials to be termed as secondary data. Those ones are not secondary data, and are not secondary data, but tertiary. Are you following? Then the last one, tertiary data, are data that have already been published. These are the data we gather in textbook. These are the data we gather in published journal. These are the data and so on. Any published materials that we use to gather information is what you call tertiary data. So therefore, you should, if maybe your research is primary data, you should make it clear that the data, the study is going to use only primary data. And the primary data will be collected from individuals. If it is bandits you are studying, maybe you collect data from bandits. You collect data. If it is triangulation you are using, you also collect from the traditional rulers, from the religious leaders, from the host community or community members, and so on. So generally, the data that we collect from individual is what we call primary data. Is that clear? Then why do we get the data? Sources of data. Mainly data, we saw them from the individual response. We got the information that we gather from the people, from our informants, or from our discussants, or from respondents, is what we are. These respondents or informants are the sources of data we use for analysis. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Then the next component is techniques of data collection. In research, we must have techniques, methods. Which method are we using to gather the data? So techniques can either be quantitative or qualitative in nature. I hope you understand the difference between quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative design or research is a form of research that enables a researcher to gather data in form of numbers. We use it, and most of the survey being conducted by researchers through the use of questionnaire is an example of survey or quantitative research. So it is a research that enables you to gather information from the population that cannot be easily directly observed. It enables you to gather information from a large number of people. It enables you to use statistical analysis for, to analyze the data, and so on and so forth. So quantitative techniques involve survey through the use of questionnaire. We are dealing with techniques of data collection. If it is quantitative research you are using, or quantitative design you are using, so the techniques is survey through the use of questionnaire. It is a questionnaire in the instrument commonly used in conducting, survey research. Then qualitative techniques include, there are methods of gathering qualitative data. Qualitative research is a type of research in which data are gathered in form of words, in form of sentences, in form of pictures, and so on and so forth. When the interview, as you interview your respondent, the interview will only be talking and you will be recording. Data is what you call qualitative data. Sometimes the data is backed by pictures or by some symbols and so on. All these are what we call qualitative data. So specific qualitative techniques include in-depth interview. In-depth interview is a face-to-face interaction between a researcher and interview. Researcher will be asking questions to the respondent, or informal, and the informal will be responding. This is what we call in-depth interview. Then we have focus group discussion. Focus group, hello, are you with me?
Yes, we are with you, sir. We are following.
Focus group discussion, or FGD, is a type of research technique that is organized, which comprise at least minimum of 6 people and maximum of 12 people. And the population must be homogeneous and get a conducive environment and sit and discuss about the issues being investigated. This kind of all questions must be derived from the objective of the study. This is what we call focus group discussion. So the data that we gather from the focus group discussion is what we call is a qualitative research design, and the method is what we call FGD. Then there is observation. Observation is act of observing things in their natural setting, the way things are happening. And an individual may be observing vicariously, you by watching. Then you may have some, observation checklist. You may have a list of items that you intend to observe. So this is observation generally is a qualitative technique. Official and personal document analysis of personal document is also qualitative techniques. So these are the techniques that we normally. So you have to explain which one are you using in your research. If it is quantitative, you should say survey techniques and you use questionnaire, and the questionnaire is blah 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 blah. You have to explain the questionnaire, the object, the component of the questionnaire for easy understanding. So researchers should be able to provide detailed description of each of the techniques and justification for selecting of the particular techniques. So when any techniques you select, you have to explain the techniques and you have to give explanation, that you have to give justification of its selection. Why did you select that technique? Why not the other? If you use survey, why survey? Why not IDI? Why not FGD? And if you use FGD, why not IDI? You have to give the reason why. The logical reason that enables you to convince your reader that yes, so techniques adopted by the researcher is more suitable for the research. Are you guys following?
Yes, we are following, sir.
Is population and sampling. Population of the study. You have to identify who are the target population. The total population of the study constitute or is called universe. You have to identify who are your population. If, for example, you are studying on use of antenatal care services in the Zamfara State, for example, your study for population may likely be all women, all prospective mothers, all women of childbearing age, women age maybe between, let's say, 18 to 49 years. So any women in the Zamfara State that fall within this age bracket is part of your research respondent. Is that clear? And is part of your population. So the fundamental requirement for sampling is correct identification of the population of the study, particularly in the case of quantitative research. If you don't know the exhaustive number of population or the universe that constitute your study population, you find it difficult to conduct a quantitative research. So the total population of the study constitutes the sampling frame from which the sample for the study can be taken. When you have total number of your total population, then you can, draw your sample, on the basis of that population. So if you don't know the population of the total number, the universe, if you don't know the sampling frame, you find it difficult to select, scientifically to select the sample. Because use of quantitative research is mainly based on probability sampling. And probability sample is not haphazard. It's not based on convenience. It's a technique that enables all members of population, equal chance of being selected. It is completely out of the researcher's bias. Like simple random sampling, simple random sampling, you have no control over it. Like systematic sampling techniques, like multi-stage cluster sampling. Non-probability sampling is most appropriate for quantitative research. So generally, you need to have identified population for you to select a sample from the population. But you need to use in quantitative research design. There are no formula developed by scholars that enables you on the basis of the population to determine an acceptable sampling size. Sample size, maybe your population is 100,000 population. So you should use the formula. There are so many formulas, for sample size determination. Use the formula and get, the needed the sample size. Formula here, Krejci and Morgan, that is a formula developed by them. There is Yamani's formula of determining sample size. There are many others that if you search, you see. Then use the formula and determine your sample size. Then a detailed description of sampling procedure. After you determine your sample size, you need to give a detailed description of your sampling techniques. How do you select your respondent? There are a number of stages. Somebody who is conducting research in Nigeria, for example, you need to use appropriate sampling techniques that will enable you to reduce to confine yourself in a researchable area. For example, conducting research in Nigeria, you may likely use multi-stage cluster sampling and divide Nigeria into stages. From the countries, maybe you reduce the country to geopolitical zone. From geopolitical zone to select some states in each geopolitical zone. In every state, you select some local government areas. In every local government area, you may select some political ward. In every political ward, you select some community. In every community, you select households. And at the minister, you questionnaire. So you need to explain how the respondents were selected in a research. Are you with me?
Yes, sir.
Then another component is method of data collection. How do you collect the data? Method of data collection has to do with the procedure of collecting data from the respondent. We collect data. Sometimes we use Kobo Collect. Sometimes we use Google Form. Sometimes we use questionnaire, hard copy, and meet our respondent and collect data. How do we collect our data? In quantitative research, questionnaire is administered. We use questionnaire in quantitative research, in a survey research. So how do we administer questionnaire? Questionnaire is administered in two ways. One, there is what we call direct administration. Second, there is what we call self-administration. Direct administration is a technique that is more suitable for illiterate people who cannot read and write. If you give them questionnaire, they cannot read it. Tablet of feeling. So such the most appropriate way of collecting data from the people that cannot read and write is through direct administration. Direct administration enables you to open your questionnaire and start following the question in the questionnaire, asking them questions, and they will be responding and you'll be writing and ticking. This is what we call direct administration. Why self-administer is more suitable for the literate people who can read and write, who can understand the content of a questionnaire. So if you are conducting a research, if your respondents are the literate people who can read and write, the best method you can use is to use self-administer. You just give them questionnaire, they will read and tick, and they finish, they will return the questionnaire back to you. This is what you call self-administered questionnaire. So generally, in a method of collecting data for quantitative research, which involve the use of questionnaire, we administer questionnaire in two ways. One, direct administration, and second, self-administration. Why in qualitative research design? Qualitative research design, researcher is more likely to use in-depth interview, or to use focus group discussion, or to use observation, or to use personal documents, and so on. So a researcher needs to clearly explain how the data were collected from the informant. Is that clear? Then instrument of data collection. There is another subheading under methodology, which we call instrument of data collection. This has to do with the tool used in collecting the data. As I said earlier, in quantitative research, the commonly tool that researchers use to gather quantitative data is questionnaire. Structure questionnaire. Questionnaire could be structured or unstructured. But although there is a lot of debate on what makes questionnaire to be structured or unstructured, some look at questionnaire, from the point of structured questions without open-ended question. If you structure your questionnaire based on close-ended questions, no open-ended question, your questionnaire is regarded as structured questionnaire. But as long as, to many researchers, If you mix question, a closed-ended question and open-ended questions in the same questionnaire, such questionnaire is semi-structured questionnaire, and so on. So generally, the essence here is for you to understand the techniques, the instrument. The instrument for gathering the quantitative data is questionnaire. Why the instrument for gathering the qualitative data are IDI guides, FGD guides, observation checklists, and so on. We conduct interview. So we cannot just conduct interview haphazardly. Even the interview we are conducting, the questions we are asking must be derived from the objective of the study. So based on the objective, your objective will guide you on the questions you ask your respondent. So those papers, small paper we are carrying, that contain the questions that we ask our respondent or informant, because in qualitative research, we normally use informants in qualitative research, particularly IDI. FGD, sometimes we use participant or discussants. So that small paper that contains the question you are asking your respondent is what you call IDI guide. Why in the focus group discussion, the paper you are holding that contain the questions derived from the objective of your research is what you call FGD guide. Why observation checklist has to do with the list of the items that you intend to observe. Maybe you want to observe whether or not the healthcare facilities are available in the hospital. By using observation, you are expected to have an exhaustive list of the items that you intend to observe in the field or in the hospital. Then any you saw paracetamol you take, you observe there is microscope, you take any item on their list. So this is what you call observation checklist, not observation guide, but we call it observation checklist. I hope you are following.
Yes, sir.
Then the next one is method of data analysis. After we collect data through use of appropriate sampling techniques. In the quantitative data, the right sampling technique is probability, which enables all population to have equal chance of being selected. And there are many techniques. The prominent techniques or sampling techniques under probability samplings as simple random sampling, systematic sampling techniques, and so on. Why in the case of qualitative data, we use non-probability sampling techniques, which doesn't allow all members to have equal chance of being selected. It is directed or guided by convenience. We have so many of them. We have convenience sampling, we have purposive sampling, we have snowballing sampling, and so on and so forth. So depending on which one are you using? For quantitative research, you are expected to use probability sampling technique. For qualitative research design, you are expected to use, qualitative research, non-probability sampling technique. So after we gather the data, the next item is which method is more suitable for the analysis of the data we gather from the field. So even here, the procedure for analyzing data, for the quantitative data and qualitative data are two different data which must be analyzed differently. For those who use triangulation or mixed methods, for those studies which gather quantitative and qualitative data, so the quantitative data must be analyzed separately and the qualitative data must also be analyzed separately. So before you should be able to synergize the two data together in the process of triangulation. So you can't just match data. The data you gather through questionnaire, you are expected to use quantitative research software. Some of the common research quantitative software we use in analyzing quantitative data are SPSS, statistical package for social sciences, or we use Tata, or we use Smart PLS. These are some of the quantitative, or we use FE data software. All these are data that can be used to analyze quantitative data, the data that we gather in questionnaire. So you have to analyze the data separately. When you finish collecting the data, you are expected to go through the questionnaire, check the questionnaire before you enter the data into the computer. Make sure that you code the data. Each data is given a number. Like, for example, sex, for example, male or female. Male is given 1, for example. Female is given 2. Because these computer software are not amenable to what? They only recognize numbers. That is why we say quantitative data is a data that we gather in form of number. So these are the software that we use to analyze our quantitative data, the data that we gather, through the use of questionnaire. Why the qualitative data? We have so many software such as Atlas TI, we have MVivo, we have MassQDS. All these are software that are designed for the analysis of the qualitative data that cannot be subjected to the rigorous statistical analysis. We use this software to analyze our data. Sometimes people find it difficult to use any of this software. We can use our data we can analyze the data thematically without using any of these. The only thing you need to organize your data into matrix form. The first matrix, after you finish, you may have finished collecting the data, you should transcribe the data verbatim. After the data may have been transcribed verbatim, you now start making a meaning to the data. Make the data to be meaningful. After making the data to be meaningful, form a second matrix, differentiate the data between, get a divergence and convergence based on your objective. These similarities, this is a dissonant. Then after that, you now use to complement the quantitative data. So generally, if you use quantitative only, if you use questionnaire only, you only use SPSS to analyze the data. If you use FGD, for example, or IDI only, you should use qualitative method of data analysis to analyze your data only. The last one under this chapter is methodological challenges. These are the difficulty the researcher encounter in the process of research. In the process of the research from the beginning to the end. During the course of your research, challenges you encounter, starting from the finding of the topic, starting from the writing of the background chapter. Such difficulty you encounter in searching for the literature, difficulty you encounter in data collection, and the insecurity trait you encounter in the field, and so on. All these challenges need to be explained here and how you overcome these challenges. So the researchers are expected to clearly explain how they were able to overcome the challenges encountered. I encounter social challenges, not the financial concern that many people write. That one is not a challenge. The challenges are the difficulty you encounter in the course of study, and it is necessary for you, any challenges you presented, explain how you overcome that challenges. This is what is expected as far as these challenges is concerned. And it is very wrong to see some students including the challenges encounter while writing a research proposal. Research challenges is included in chapter 3 after the final report is ready. After you may have concluded all your research report writing, then you should include there is a challenges in the study, not at the proposal level. You see researchers or students including just like a research has already been conducted. So it's not done in that way. Just stay on these components we describe. The challenges encounter should be after you may have finished collecting the data, analyzing the data, after you may have finished the report writing. Then you should include your challenges. Is that clear? Are you with me?
Yes, sir. We are with you.
Okay. All right. The next one, the next component is chapter 4, which is called analysis and interpretation of data. This chapter deals with the presentation and interpreting of the empirical evidence that enable you to answer the research question and meet your research objective. This is after we may have finished data collection and the data were analyzed. The next one is chapter 4, where you present the analyzed data. You present the analyzed data and interpret the data. So how do we begin? We begin by introducing brief introduction of the chapter. We say this chapter focuses on the analysis, on the presentation and interpretation of data based on the topic blah 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 blah. Then you need to explain if it is particularly quantitative. The analysis is based on how many questionnaires, because not all questionnaires that you administer, particularly if you use self-administered questionnaire, not all questionnaires that may likely be retrieved. So if some questionnaires are missing, you need to tell your reader that so number of questionnaires were missing, not to retrieve them. So on the basis of that, the analysis was based on so number of questionnaires. Then, including if it is qualitative, you need to explain how many participants, of if it is a focus group discussion, how many participated in each session of the focus group discussion. The homogeneity of the population must be clearly indicated, and so on. Then you need to explain, as I said, the minimum number of participants should be 6. The maximum should be 12. Shouldn't go beyond 12, because if you allow the participant to be many, you find it difficult to coordinate. So generally, you need to give brief introduction of the chapter at the introductory stage. Then after that, secondly, the chapter contains socio-demographic characteristics of the respondent. You need to present how a table, ideally in the modern day, don't expect socio-demographic characteristics. There are so many variables in where we act, we gather information from starting from the age, maybe age, sex, maybe socio-economic status, that is education, income, marital status, and so on. All these demographic, socio-demographic characteristics, when we come for presentation at chapter 4, we shouldn't provide table for each one. They say table 1, sex distribution of the respondent. It will make your work more cumbersome. You have the bewildering array of tables that you find difficult to coordinate. So it's better to lump everything in one table. You should design a table in such a way that all the socio-demographic characteristics can be accommodated in one table. Sex, male or female, percentage, you create a column for percentage. And frequency and percentage. The same thing applies to other. So you just give the table one title, socio-demographic characteristics of the respondent. Then you should interpret. In the interpretation, it is many scholars find it difficult to interpret their data. What most scholars do is repeating what is observable on the table. You see them interpreting data. The table 1, in the table 4.1 shows that 30% male, 70% female, and so on. Continue that is not data. You need to explain, interpret data. Maybe somebody who is studying maybe let's say as a women of childbearing age. Respondent. Okay, age of respondent probably a women that fall within the age bracket 18 and 59 years constitute a majority. So at the time you indicate, you should only interpret those statistics that have important implication to the research findings. As can be seen on the table, majority of the respondents are women aged within the bracket 18 to 49 years. This shows that majority of women are of childbearing age, are within the age in which are more likely to be productive. This is explanation. So you need to give implication. Implication is the most important thing. And after you then the data should be, we should interpret the data based on objectives. After we finish interpreting the social-demographic aspect, we should explain the implications of the finding. Is the most important thing. And we shouldn't, researchers should only focus on the highest percentage and the lowest percentage. That is what makes, don't say 50% is male, 40% is Gada, 10% is Gada, 5% the lowest is this. This one is not done in that way. Just focus on two major key percentage, the highest percentage and the lowest percentage, and give an implication of your findings. I hope you are following me.
Yes, sir. We are following.
And then, after you finish interpreting your socio-demographic characteristics of the research, of the finding, of the respondent, the next you have 5 objectives. Objective 1, you should have a subheading. After having a subheading, all the data you gather in your questionnaire relating to objective 1 should be analyzed on that subheading. You may even form a one table also here and interpret the implication of the findings there. So the same thing to other objectives. All your 1 to 5 objectives should be analyzed in a separate subsection. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
And as I said, the comment you should be making, just highlight the highest and the lowest percentage. And after you explain the highest, and don't say it can be seen 105 participants constituting 50% blah 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 is wrong. Just focus that as 50% of respondents are blah blah blah, then give us implication of the finding. This is what researchers are expected to do, not to be giving a explanation that is cumbersome and so on. Are you following? So then after that, if you have, as you present your findings, if you have interest in testing hypothesis, maybe if the hypothesis is bivariate hypothesis or multivariate hypothesis. Bivariate hypothesis is a variable that contains only 2 variables. So if you want to test the hypothesis, you need to use appropriate, statistical techniques to test the hypothesis. Like a chi-square is more suitable for testing bivariate hypothesis. So you can use chi-square and test the hypothesis. Then you present the result under that objective. Unless the hypotheses are many. If there are many, you can create another subsection. After you finish, descriptive statistics, then you can form another subsection, analysis of bivariate and multivariate hypothesis. If you have multivariate hypothesis, which probably that is more amenable to the use of regression analysis and other highly sophisticated statistical techniques. Then you can form a subsection and make analysis there. and analyze and test your hypothesis there. There is nothing wrong for that. But as long as you don't have hypothesis, just you are only interested in using descriptive statistics. So just explain your data according to the objectives. Analyze your data, or interpret your data based on the objective. You are done with the objective one, create another subsection for objective and analyze and present and interpret until you finish, you exhaust all your data. Then after that one, we have discussion of the finding. You have discussion of the finding session under chapter 4. Although some universities may tell you that discussion of the findings should be a separate chapter, particularly for those universities that encourage research to have to consist of 6 chapters. They may say chapter 5 is discussion of the findings, so that to enable you to have a depth, discussion of the findings. So how do we disclose findings? Many people also find it difficult to disclose findings of their studies. So what is done? A discussion of finding is a mixture of 3 issues. The first one is reiteration of the executive summary of the finding. The first issue you are expected to do when you come to discussion, first of all, your discussion should be based on the objectives of your study. When you are discussing findings of objective 1, you will need to reiterate the objective 1. That is the objective, the finding of the objective 1. Having identified the objective, the finding of the objective 1, you should now compare. The second one is a comparison of the finding with other related studies. You review literature. Go back to chapter 2. You review your empirical review, not conceptual review. As we explained, the second part, which is empirical review, where you review empirical studies. Compare the findings of other scholars as you review with your own findings. You will see whether the findings agree with the existing body of knowledge or disagree. So if the findings agree, you begin to say the finding of this study is in consonance or is in agreement, agree with the findings of so scholar. This research conducted in so place, and so on and so forth. If there is dissonance or disagreement between your own findings and the findings of other scholars, you are also expected to explain that this finding of this research contradicts or is in dissonance or in disharmony with the findings of another study conducted in Iraq or conducted in Bangladesh or conducted in Nigeria and so on, in a particular state within Nigeria. Then it will enable you to have a logical discussion of findings. So after that, the last one is the theory. You need to explain I reiterate the finding of your research. You compare your research with the existing body of knowledge. You now link the finding or your discussion to the theory. How relevant your findings is to the theory you adopted, the theoretical framework. So these are the 3 issues that a researcher is expected to do when it comes to the issue of discussion of the finding. So you should iterate the key findings of the study, relate the findings of the study to the existing body of knowledge, to the existing literature, in order to see, to discover this dissonance or agreement. Then link, lastly, the finding to the theoretical framework or to the theory you use. Then this is all about chapter 4. The last chapter, because this lecture is structured or is organized by considering a research project to compose of only 5 chapters. So our last chapter here is chapter 5. Chapter 5 represents summary, conclusions, and recommendations. Beginning with the summary. The summary, how can we summarize the whole work, our research? The summary is not just to summarize the chapters of the chapter one, composed of introduction, statement of the problem, composed of research objective, research blah 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 blah. No, the summary should only focus on finding of the study presented based on objective of the study, not the summary of all the chapters. Just focus on the major findings. In objective one, what are the major findings? What are the key findings of the study? Key, executive finding and the specific finding. Discuss them there. To objective two, what are the findings? Summarize them there. This is what we call summary of the summary, not summary of chapters as has been the norms, for many researchers. Then conclusion. Conclusion deals with authoritative statement of fact derived from the study findings. This is, in conclusion, is where it enables you to make an authoritative statement of the fact that based on the data you gather, based on the data you gather, blah, 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 blah are the major factors responsible for the phenomenon, for the problem you are investigating in that. This is why you are expected to make an authoritative, an expert statement to convince the reader that based on your research concludes that the major problem of compensatory in the state is greatness or is illiteracy. This conclusion. So conclusion enables you to make an authoritative statement to conclude the nature of the problem, to tell the world that you are an authority in the field because you can, based on the research, based on the rigorous methodology you use, and the study founder, and on the basis of the founder, this is my statement, this is my thesis, this is my explanation. Your thesis may be in one sentence. The major factors responsible for a particular problem is this. And you have to explain the implication of the problem. If the problem is allowed to persist in the problem, it will lead to so phenomenon as you observe. This is conclusion. Then the last one is recommendations. There is recommendations. Recommendations on the basis. Also, sometimes you discover that students, particularly writing projects, you discover a disconnect between findings of the research of the project and the recommendation the students are giving. Some students are of the habit of googling some recommendations, what they think are important, which contradicts the finding of their research and just write as their recommendation. It's wrong. It's not done in that way. Recommendation must be a response to the findings of your research. Based on your finding of research, this is your recommendation. This is the way through which the problem could be addressed or could be solved, and so on and so forth. So recommendation covers both short-term and long-term recommendation based on the finding of the study. You are expected to give short-term recommendation and long-term recommendation. Short-term recommendation is meant to bring about immediate changes, while the long-term recommendation are meant to bring about the fundamental changes or permanent changes, things, recommendation that may lead to permanent resolution of the problem being studied. So, and as it is how it is done, you should itemize them. This research found that blah 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 that therefore it is recommended that blah 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 that things should be done to bat the problem. This is how you should be, following your objectives, highlighting or pinpointing the finding and give recommendation to address any problem you discover as far as the research is concerned. Then the last component is the references and appendixes. Any research project composed of references. References involves list of all materials used based on referencing style recommended by each institution. Many institutions, recommend different institutions. They recommend different, referencing style. So in the case of social sciences, most of universities in Nigeria, particularly most of universities in social sciences, recommend APA style, American Psychological Association style of references. So you need to have any material you use in intake citation. It has to appear in your references. So your reference page constitute an exhaustive list of all the material, all the articles, all the books, all the conference proceedings, and so on used or cited in your work. And you have to comply with the referencing style approved or recommended by the institution you are submitting your project to. There are so many types of referencing styles. Some use APA style, some use Chicago style, some use Vancouver style, some use Oxford referencing style, and so on. So depending on where you are studying, so you have to comply with the referencing style. Then the last one, appendices. Appendices are attachments that are intended to assist or guide the reader in getting a comprehensive picture of the research project. Such appendices could be your instrument. Your questionnaire must be attached there in form of appendices. It enables the reader to know, whether or not the data you analyze has, the data have already measured, through using the instrument you attach. It could be IDI guide, it could be some maps, it could be some diagrams, and so all these are expected to be well structured under your appendices. I think this is where we came to the end of this lecture. This tells you that research is systematic. Research project is a systematic way. It is based on a clearly defined activities based on clearly defined procedures. There are do's and don'ts governing research, and for you to come up with a befitting research project, you need to follow the rules. Just like in the definition we gave, which Newman said research is seeking for answers to questions about the social world. And to do that, the researcher needs to think logically, follow rules, and follow stages over and over. So these are the rules. You have to start with chapter 1, chapter 2, all the components of chapter 1, all the components of chapter 2. And in the review literature, one thing I forgot to say, many students, you discover that students are of the habit of giving history of the concept, of the general concept they are investigating on. Like a banditry, you see people write history of banditry in chapter 2. In chapter 2, we don't need anything history. Anything history should go back to the background. Immediately after you finish background of your study, create a subheading before you move to the statement of the problem, historical perspective of banditry. Then you should give your own history. In the literature review, what we only want to see is review is conceptual and operational review. Then we equally need the last part of the literature review, which is empirical review. These are the only things that are needed in literature review. So thank you for listening. I thought the lecture will not take us more than an hour or 2 hours at most. But by all indication, this lecture took us more than 3 hours. Although we are constrained to begin the lecture at the right time. We started late due to the network challenges we encounter. I once again apologize for that. Thank you so much for listening. Over to you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this
All
wonderful lecture.
right. It's my,
And
my pleasure.
yeah, thank you, sir. I think there are some questions in the chat which I think I will read out loud. But some of the questions
Okay.
I'm very sorry. Yeah, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was saying that there are some questions in the chat, but some of the questions I think will just draw us back to what you have explained because some people ask questions which you have already deliberated upon.
No
So I
problem.
think I will ask some of the questions that need maybe simple explanation or simple expatiating on that so that other people that did not be here, that are not here with us from the beginning can rewatch the entire lecture to have more about what they asked. So even if I read out the questions and you already talk about that, maybe you can refer the person to rewatch the lecture and then they can find the answer to their question. So the first question that we have here, I think, is from Sani Bashir Baki. He was asking about. Okay, let me go. Okay, yeah, he's the first, I think. Is it
Okay, I can
necessary?
hear you. I'm
Yeah,
hearing
he said that is it necessary to write summary after you have written abstract at the beginning of the project? That is a question.
Is it necessary to write summary?
Summary, yeah. Is it necessary to write summary after you have written abstract at the beginning of the project?
Yes, it's like what he wants to know how to write an abstract. Abi, is it not
No, his question
just to
is
abstract?
is it necessary? That is question. Is it necessary to write summary after you have written abstract at the beginning of the project?
No, no need of any summary.
Okay.
Abstract, it is the abstract that constitutes the summary of the work. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
And abstract, in every research project, we need to, after writing a report, a comprehensive report is not completed unless there is a written abstract. So abstract gives a summary of the whole work. An abstract contains the critical component of an abstract. Number one, that you need to state the problem. In a few sentences, in 2 or 3 sentences, you need to introduce the abstract page with the problem. So having identified the problem, you need to then followed by the objective of the problem or objective of the study. Then after objective, summarize the methodology used in the study, the methodology used in conducting the study. Then explain how the data were analyzed, and then lastly, the findings of the study, and then the recommendation of the study. So in not more than 250 words, depending on the richness of the research, these are the critical components of an abstract in any project. Are you guys following? So
Yes, sir.
as a reader, go through the abstract, he may have clear picture of the whole work. You will easily grab the method used, the findings, the methodology, the recommendation, and so on. So this is what we call summary of the whole. Abstract is what constitutes a summary of the whole work, not to have another summary where after you may have written the abstract. It's not done in that way. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The next question we have here, sir, is from Ali
I don't know whether
Makinta.
okay.
Can you hear us? Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
The next question that we have is from Ali Makinta. He's talking about causes of the research problem, for instance, if his topic is public perceptions of political leaders and institutions in Mongono, LGA. So should it contain causes of the problem? That's his question. That is question.
In the topic, in framing the topic,
Yeah, I think that what he's asking in his framing the project is he going to maybe put the causes of the research problem in the topic?
No need. She doesn't have to put the causes of the research problem in the topic. The causes should be embedded in the research objective after it may have problematized her statement of the problem. Is that clear? So the topic shouldn't have so many words. It shouldn't, if a topic should not contain more than 90 words,
Okay.
including the three positions that may likely be embedded in the topic. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
So
So
the
another
courses should
question.
be in research objective, not on the topic, unless.
No, sir. Continue, sir.
It's okay.
Okay.
That is just it.
Okay. So the next question we have, Sani Bashapaki, I think I'm skipping your question, I guess. So let's move to other people that ask question. Sir, the person is asking this one also is asking about difference between secondary and tertiary data.
Okay. Secondary data. First of all, you need to know what data is all about. Data, as we explained during the lecture, data are information that we gather, measure, or collect in order to gain insights on the phenomena under investigation. So this information are of three types: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So I think primary data is clear to him. It's the data that you collect, the first-hand information that you gather from the field, from your informant or from your respondent. Secondary data is a second-hand data. Is a data that has already been collected by another person, and you are using. Maybe the data, as I gave an example during the lecture, that sometimes in the hospital, for example, you are conducting a research on ANC. So every hospital where ANC services is being offered, they take attendance of number of women that attend ANC per month. So those data collected by healthcare personnel, they collected the data, original data from the women that came for ANC. So, but to them, such data is a primary data. But to you, as a researcher who wants to know the number of women that attended antenatal care in a particular hospital, the data became a secondary data to you. It's a data gathered by somebody or some organization for their own use, and it is yet to be published. This data is what we call secondary data. Why tertiary data is the data, the information that we find in textbook that have already been published, that are found in magazines, that are found in articles, in journal articles, and so on. Data that have already been published. If we use them in our research, such data is what we call tertiary data. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The next question that we have is from Suleiman Adekunle. He's asking that how
Okay.
can we recognize theories, methods, even findings that are not relevant to the study? That is first question. And he went ahead and said that in addition, you stated the lack of knowledge of the exact population of the study, it will be impossible to know the appropriate sample size. So for someone who is, so he went ahead and bring, I think it's his study, female and
Okay.
party leadership, his study of APC and PDP in Ilorin West LJ. But the person
Let
is,
me
yeah,
before we deal with the second question, let us respond to the first question.
yes, sir.
Then we move to the second one. You can reiterate the question, then we respond.
Okay, sir.
The question says, you say what?
Yeah, the first
I'm
question
not
is
writing.
how can we recognize theories, methods, even findings that are not relevant to the study?
Okay. You, as a researcher, you must have a topic, and that topic must constitute a problem that you want to study. Then you need to problematize or contextualize the problem. So from the problem you problematize, you must have objective. So an objective must be from the problem. So we have so many theories. We have so many theories that their assumptions are directly related to your to the objectives or assumptions you have or your hypothesis. So like somebody who is writing on healthcare utilization, for example, there are a number of theories that are applicable, that are meant or developed to healthcare, on healthcare utilization. Like, for example, Anderson healthcare model, like health belief model, for example, like Suchman stages of healthcare utilization. So if you are writing on healthcare utilization, maybe factor responsible for low utilization of healthcare services, your objective must be on healthcare. And those theories were developed to explain healthcare's utilization. So those theories, if you go through them, you discover that they are very relevant to your own objectives. So and somebody who is writing on let's say governance or political or democracy or whatever, he needs to look at the theory that talk on democracy. Somebody who is writing on corruption, we need to look at such theories that talk about or develop to explain corruption. So the only way to get theories that are relevant to your research objectives is by searching theories that directly address or that are related to your objectives. So if you go through the theory, if you read their assumption, you discover that either directly or indirectly are relevant to your theories. Why, in the case of methodology, you say, how can we recognize the relevant methodology or what?
Yes, sir. How can we recognize methods? Yeah, you talk about method and findings that are not relevant to the study.
There are research warrants, the nature of research warrants, designs, how the research should be structured. There are certain research, for example, if you are conducting a quantitative research design, somebody who is using questionnaire, and you are using questionnaire, you are using quantitative research design, and you now employ purposive sampling to say your purposive sampling will be used to collect the data. This is wrong. It's not suitable. You need to employ quantitative probability sampling techniques to enable you. Somebody using quantitative research design, and he doesn't know the exhaustive, he doesn't have population, sampling frame. That is the total number of population. Yet he wants to, draw a sample size from an unknown population. It's not possible. It's very wrong. It's not suitable. Are you following? So and somebody who is conducting who is studying banditry, but he end up asking only the inhabitants or residents of community affected by banditry without hearing from the bandits themselves. This research is also wrong. You need to understand who are the bandits, why are they bandits, and hearing from their own point of view, hearing from them it makes research more important and more rigor than just hearing from from the wrong population. So using wrong population in research can you as a researcher I think you have the intellect. You can reason if you are studying a wrong population. Wrong population, a population that cannot give you the desired or the required answer. So as far as you must, at least you should know that if you are using wrong population, wrong methodology, you should be know. You should know that the method I'm using is wrong. The population I'm using is wrong because they cannot give me the desired answer, and so on and so forth. So I think it's not a big deal to understand what you are doing is wrong. In the case of research project that is being guided by supervisors, your supervisor will tell you that if your research design is not suitable for your research, if the population of study is not suitable, if maybe the hypothesis you formulated is not suitable, or if the research doesn't even need hypothesis at all, then your research supervisor will guide you more appropriate. Yes, the second question.
Okay, sir. Yeah. I'm so sorry to most of the many people that are maybe some of the questions. I will complete these questions, sir, and I think it's time we are going to draw the curtain here because it's almost about 3 hours now. So the last part of this question that we'll discuss about is talking about sampling size. He said that uh, there are different formulas for determining sampling size. This formula often include margin of error. For instance, he's talking about the 0.005% by default, but researcher change it. Therefore, his question is the 0.005 margin of error the standard, or it is subjected to personal changes? That's his question.
No, it's depend on the method the formula you are using. Those that are items that are constant in the formula. So if you follow the formula, there are figure in the formula that are constant. So the constant you have to use them. You have to use them like that. What you only need to do. There are a place where the formula may ask you to what is your population of study. You write what is your in the most important population of your study. Most of the other things are constant. Other numbers that are required that enable you to compute the needed sample size are constant, depending on the formula. The formulas are many. As I say, like Krejci and Morgan, if you use his own formula, 0.5 is constant. There is another place where square. So I can't precisely recall the formula, but I know that there are certain things, 0 point whatever, that are constant. The same thing applies to your money. There are a number of figure that you must use them. You don't need to import them from elsewhere. You have to use them. The only thing you need to import is maybe your population size.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sparing your time out of a busy schedule to hold this lecture for all of us. Thank you so much. We really appreciate. I think this is exactly where we are going to draw the curtain for this wonderful lecture that talks about a guide for writing, research projects in the social sciences, which was delivered by Dr. Kabir Ibrahim Yankuzo of Department of Sociology, Federal University, Birnin, Kebbi, and the current Deputy Dean Student Affairs of the same university. I think after hearing about 3 hours lecture, I think it's time for us to allow you to rest and also to call this a day. So to all our participants, those that are present with us here on Zoom, and also those that are online, watching us, I think I wish you all the best. And on behalf of everyone, sir, we say a very big thank you, sir. And may Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and bless all your endeavors. Thank you so much for this, sir. And I think I wish you all the best. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you.